if, as I suspect, it is a law clerk, they should never practice law again. They should be disbarred for this, because this is handling sensitive information that was not theirs to release. And as a law clerk, they drill this into you. It was made clear to me when I was a law clerk at the Supreme Court for Justice Alito, you don't take draft opinions out of the building, ever. You don't take it to lunch, you don't take it home. It shouldn't even leave your office when you're finished with it. You can't just throw it in the wastebasket. You've got to put it in this special bag.
So you mentioned politics entering the court. Obviously, at this point, because politics has become our national religion, it seems almost impossible not to. I had Judge Napolitano from Fox on a couple weeks ago in the middle of the Ketanji Brown-Jackson hearing, and his position was that basically the Senate should confirm a judge that is, nominated by the president, barring something really off the charts, like really, really beyond unbelievable in a decision that they made. That basically the decision should be left to the president, and short of something really catastrophic, the person should be confirmed. Now we watch confirmation hearings, and on both sides, it's all sorts of, dredging out all kinds of horrible things or made up things in the case of Brett Kavanaugh. Perhaps in Ketanji Brown's case, the fact that she couldn't tell you what a woman was, maybe that was a catastrophic thing that would have qualified. But what's your general position on when a president nominates someone, what the process should actually look like?
Look, I make no mystery about the fact that when there is a Democratic president in office, I understand that we're not going to get the same nominees as we would when there's a Republican holding the office of the presidency. It still matters, and it still matters to me to review each candidate individually and figure out whether he or she understands, respects, appreciates, and will defiantly protect the independence of the judiciary, and will understand that each case is to be decided on the basis of its own merits and on the basis of what the law says, on the basis of the law as it was understood at the time of its enactment, if a statute, or at the time of its ratification, if it's a provision of the Constitution. And so I'll vote yes for a nominee, even if that nominee doesn't share my political worldview, if I think that nominee is sufficiently committed to the judicial task. If not, I won't. So I don't know that ought to ever mean blind deference to any president, whether that president is of your own political party or not. It certainly doesn't mean that to me, and I don't think it should to anyone else either.
You mentioned the Dobbs case before. It's kind of bizarre. This leak happens, now it's probably 6 weeks ago or so. And basically, not only are we not talking about it anymore, but it doesn't seem like anyone's trying to track down the leaker. Are you aware of anything that's going on that maybe we're not fully aware of through the media yet? And what do you think that the leak itself has done to the integrity of the court?
Until fairly recently, I was convinced that they had identified the leaker and they just had made a strategic decision within the court not to announce the leaker's identity until after the Dobbs case was decided, which may not happen until the end of the court's term, which usually wraps up in the final days of the month of June. But then a few days ago, news reports started to surface suggesting that the investigation is still ongoing, that they've asked law clerks, there are 4 for each justice, to submit their phone records and submit sworn affidavits about their conduct of in this case, about what, if anything, they have done with copies of Supreme Court opinions. So it seems to be that the investigation is ongoing. I do think they'll figure out who it is, because we're dealing with a fairly finite group of people, and it's not that hard to figure out. I think we'll find out. Whoever it is, if as I suspect it is a law clerk, they should never practice law again. They should be disbarred for this, because this is handling sensitive information that was not theirs to release. And as a law clerk, they drill this into you. It was made clear to me when I was a law clerk at the Supreme Court for Justice Alito, you don't take draft opinions out of the building, ever. You don't take it to lunch, you don't take it home. It shouldn't even leave your office when you're finished with it. You can't just throw it in the wastebasket. you've got to put it in this special bag, a bag whose contents are retrieved at the end of every day. They retrieve the contents, they shred the documents, not just once, but twice, turning it into a confetti. And then they put it in an incinerator and burn it into this black powder. And then they add a little bit of water to it, and it creates this tar-like slurry structure before it ever leaves the custody of the Supreme Court of the United States. That's how seriously they take the confidentiality of the opinion drafting process. So whoever did this knows darn well what those procedures are and why they matter. That's why that person should never be permitted to practice law again. I do think they'll figure it out.
So assuming they do figure it out, or even if they don't, what do you think it's done just generally to the integrity of the court, the ability for the court to make a decision, hold a decision until the time is right for it to be released, and just the way the media reacts to all of it? Because obviously this was leaked to Politico. They had their decision on whether to release it or not, or verify it in other ways. From everything we understand, it is legit. But just the general standing of the court, which to me the left is constantly trying to subvert anyway, not just through packing, but generally just assault all of the decisions.
Yeah, I think it's devastating. The court has enjoyed a history in which this has not occurred. Now, the left-wing media is fond of saying things like, oh, this isn't the first time this has happened, other leaks have happened. Yeah, sure, every once in a while, maybe once or twice in a decade, word will leak out maybe an hour or two before an opinion is released, suggesting that the person knows what the answer is going to be. And most of the time, it's a 50-50 guess anyway. It's like betting on red or black at the roulette wheel. You're going to be right on average half the time. And sometimes they get that right. But they've never leaked an entire draft opinion. This has never happened before. There's been a network of trust within the court, and there's been unanimous support within the court and its support staff in making sure this doesn't happen. So I think we can stem the damage moving forward as long as the court takes additional security steps to make sure this never happens again. But I think they're going to have to put in place some sophisticated watermarks behind every draft opinion from now on that will identify the person who had access to that watermark so that a leak like this can't happen. And if it does happen, the person will be immediately found.
So you mentioned federalism earlier and states' rights, obviously. As I mentioned to you right before we started, I spent the last 8 years of my life in California. I now live in the free state of Florida. And as I've been saying on the show, I genuinely feel like I live in a different country, not in a different state, but in a different country. I'm wondering, what do you see differently on the ground in terms of what your constituents want in Utah and the way that you feel that you can govern there versus what goes on when you show up in D.C. and what you have to deal with? Yeah,
it's a good question. Look, most Americans, it's true of Utahns, and I'm pretty sure it's true of Californians and people in Massachusetts, in Wyoming, or whatever state you want to identify. Most Americans intuitively resonate with the concept of federalism. And by the way, I refer to it by that title rather than as states' rights, because my belief is that a state is a unit of government. Units of government don't have rights, they have authority. Mm-hmm. Authority is almost the opposite of a right. So it's recognizing the appropriate sphere of government authority. That's what federalism is. And most people understand that federalism makes sense because it allows for more Americans to gain access to more of the kind of government they want and less of the kind of government they don't want.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of nonstop yelling, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.